Hey! Before on the channel, we've talked about things like what might be the most bizarre episode of the Scooby-Doo Show, but there are a lot of others that are just plain weird, freaky, or unusual, even if they aren't the big standout classics everyone knows. Today, I thought we'd stop and take a look at another one of these total oddball episodes that people seem to want to hear about and I've been meaning to get around to. Those massive classics always have time for attention later. I wouldn't exactly call this one of the scariest villains or episodes, though it does have some nice atmosphere. Rather, this villain stands out as just totally out there, different from your typical ghosts and whatnot we tend to see Scooby face. And the twist at the end even stands out as a rare occurrence we don't see in this series very often, even if it's not one of the icons. This episode has a lot of standout assets to work with. Today we're in the third season of the Scooby-Doo Show, originally part of the Scooby's All-Stars block and now called the third season of Where Are You, confusingly, for season 3, episode 10, The Creepy Creature of the Vulture's Claw, originally aired November 11th, 1978. The villain on the menu today is none other than the Mantis. Yeah, this guy. Weird giant bug man. Not really the most exciting, but he does have that freaky part down. Even our titular location today, Vulture's Claw, has a lot going for it. It's a really neat and spooky design for our setting. Let's find out what makes this episode interesting. This episode opens up by dropping us in this area, where all of the land immediately looks like a vulture's claw. Ominous music telling us something is wrong with it. There's a small building that a path leads to, the fittingly named Vulture's Claw Botanical Gardens, where our episode today takes place. Even just going through surrounding foliage, the atmosphere leading to the building is off as the music doesn't let up. On the surface at least, it seems nice enough. It's a beautiful design that's more welcoming than not. I would probably visit here to see the architecture. There's a delivery man at the door this night, here to deliver a package for someone named Professor Greer. The man is startled by something in the bushes, however, and out pops the Mantis. Kind of love this reaction, just sticking his finger in his mouth, not even running away. To be fair, what do you do when you see this suddenly pop out? He still just stands there for too long before finally running back to his truck, and the tension just continues to build as he tries to start it, but the engine won't get going, all while the Mantis slowly walks in front of him over to his door. It seems like it's going to rip it off and tear him out, when instead, it just sort of stands there and poses in the lightning. That's cool too, I guess. Later, the gang are driving down the road to visit Professor Greer at his botanical garden, relying on the boys following the map to get them there, headed right for Vulture's Claw, which Shaggy does not love the sound of.
Take it easy, Shaggy. It's just a name.
Yeah, that's what they said about Transylvania.
I see Shaggy's been celebrating the Rocky Horror Picture Show anniversary too hard this year. Also interesting how they have the girls in the back for once. You don't see that every day. They get a sudden fright as a truck is headed right for them, just narrowly avoiding a crash, but losing Scooby through the window. They finally arrive at their destination and realize the truck must have been leaving here. They find it a lot creepier than they seemed to expect, especially with how fast that guy wanted to get out of here. The boys try to follow his example, but run into this scary guy and quickly reunite with the gang instead as he accuses them of trespassing. It's frightening enough that Scooby's feet got cut off. Velma explains who she is, and that she's friends with the professor, here with her other friends to see him. He says he's Harry Keeble, caretaker of 20 years, and menacingly adds that they should leave, along with the professor. Wonder if he's related to Max Keeble. As he goes, he finally warns them there's something big and evil loose in the gardens, very suspicious of him.
I'm allergic to big, loose, evil things.
Velma isn't prepared to go, worried about the professor, but Mr. Keeble is gone before they can ask more. Also, is Daphne okay? They proceed through the gardens, pursuing a light Fred thought he saw, when Shaggy realizes Scooby has gone missing.
Where's Scooby?
Hurry up, Shaggy!
He literally just asked where his dog is, and she could not be less bothered. He calls out, and for some reason he makes this terrible, awful face when he hears the bushes rustle. Turns out it's Scooby picking some flowers. Very cheeky. He even offers them to Shaggy until they hear a roar, making even the flowers wilt. And suddenly, hiding behind the bush, they realize the source is right behind them. The Mantis arriving at last. Scoob tries to share the flowers as a peace offering, but the big bug just sneezes at them. They run back to tell the others what they saw, Scooby even doing a giant bug impression as an example, but they get another jump scare as a hand appears, and it really does make Shaggy jump. Look at that hair. Velma recognizes him, finally finding Professor Greer, who's distractingly voiced by Frank Welker doing double duty as both he and Fred. While at it, Velma adds that they just happened to be in the neighborhood, so she didn't even bother to tell him they were dropping by. He tells them to go because there's something loose, like Mr. Keeble warned, but offers them to come in for now. Scooby is not waiting any longer with that, picking them all up himself. Inside, he says he's been trying to catch this thing for weeks, and as Velma asks of its origin, he tells them to follow him through this creepy door. Love Shaggy complaining about creepy doors always making such eerie noises, and Scoob pulling out an oil can to promptly fix that issue for us. Except the door still makes the noise. Creepy gonna creepy. As the gang follow the professor, he says the creature appeared when he took over the gardens, scaring off everyone else but Mr. Keeble. Reaching their destination, he says he found this place a week ago, and I've really zoomed out proper so you can get a good look, because this episode loves to pan around areas. You have a real proper mad science lab here, pretty groovy. He found a diary with an entry describing a fatal error in an experiment, and that this specific person was themselves turned into a large praying mantis creature. Though Velma notes the oddity of only the one entry in the diary, nothing about what experiments were happening before, or what happened after.
The change affected his mind.
That's understandable.
I don't know why that's so funny, but I love her for that. As the professor says, the man is now a wild creature preying on others. This other man is creeping on them from the tunnel, and Scooby is so frightened that he runs in that direction right into the guy. And better yet, they just bounce down the stairs, which looks very insane. The professor explains this guy is Clive Dickerman, which is certainly a name, a real estate developer who's been hounding him about buying Vulture's claw. And Dickerman chimes in that he's sure the professor would be even more inclined to sell now with that creature out there. Professor Greer isn't scared off so easily, so Dickerman says his offer will always stand if he changes his mind. Dude, chill. If he's not the Mantis, dude is still a psycho. Real estate is not that serious. Professor Greer adds that he doesn't actually own the property yet anyway, so he couldn't sell it even if he wanted to. As for Dickerman, he just wants to tear down the gardens for a housing development, ruining the natural beauty of the location, and the professor is not getting scared off and letting something like that happen. But he warns the gang they should definitely be out by the morning. Later in the night, you know exactly that Velma is not leaving this unresolved, and Fred and Daft don't think they could sleep tonight anyway, so the trio decide they should investigate. The boys are not having that and get ready for bed, turning down the offer to join them until they realize fully that it means being alone in this place. As Shaggy takes his nightshirt back off, Scooby answers the door again to a terrible fright of the Mantis, so freaky that his arm is clipping through the wall and doorframe here. Scoob runs into the nightshirt as their friend comes to join them, and I do very much love this part.
Don't tell me it's the Mantis. I asked you not to tell me that!
They run the freak out of there, and this guy just poses for the camera again as he walks toward us. Hey, we're back. And you know what? The Mantis is still posing for the camera again as he walks toward us. Just the same. The boys run to hide in some drawers, and kind of like What a Shocking Ghost in the first season, they start some whack-a-mole shenanigans before somehow they end up in this wardrobe, which even they don't understand.
How'd we do that?
I don't know.
Bro is still so fixated that he doesn't even see them walk by. As the trio are looking at the diary again, they also find it odd that it doesn't even indicate who it belongs to when they hear a noise. Books on the shelf suddenly get pushed over as this guy comes pushing through from the other side. He casually says he's Eric Arby, also voiced by Frank Welker, and no relationship to the restaurant, identifying himself as assistant to the professor. Velma questions that they never heard of him, so he admits he ran away with everyone else, but he felt guilty leaving the professor alone. The boys, meanwhile, are still stuck in a chase with the Mantis, and as Shaggy pounds on a door for Scooby to let him in, Scoob accidentally drags the Mantis inside with him instead. I don't even know what happens here. The door bumps around with some kind of situation inside, Scooby pulls Shaggy in appropriately, and then the Mantis just off-screen pulls a lever to send them down a trap door that exists for some reason. They get dumped down into some kind of cave, full of whatever this stuff is, to be continued, and worse, there's a crocodile down here, so they race out. Velma looks over the equipment in the lab, finding it very odd and not even connected. Suddenly, a revolving wall starts exposing a chase between the boys and Croc, and just as Shaggy thinks there's nothing left that could scare him, they hear a growl. Eric ditches them and runs off again, unable to be found anywhere. And while the others aren't looking, the Mantis pops out of a secret door to abduct Daphne, because it's always Daphne. They realize they need Professor Greer, so they all head over to his room and just sneak up to his bed. No knocking to wake him up or anything, and they're lucky he slept in a full robe tonight. They see something moving outside, so they head out to see while the professor remains to change his clothes. Waiting to jump the light source, they make their move, the boys unsuccessfully capturing themselves, while Fred and Velma caught Dickerman. They rightfully question why he isn't afraid of the creature, but he makes no comment and gets away. The boys think they found him in the bushes moving around, bravely prepared to catch him, but it seems the Mantis instead got the jump on them. They manage to get away, resulting in a chase between the 5 of them now, hiding in the old caretaker's cabin while knocks pound on the door. Velma realizes it's not the door though, but the closet, where they find find Daphne tied up, a likely place for her to be. They untie her as she says the Mantis left her here, when the door opens and the lightning strikes reveal Mr. Keeble, here to warn them to leave again, along with the professor. The reunited gang walk around further as Dickerman continues to stalk them, watching as they walk back into the building, and he's not alone. Keeble also spying on them. And yet, there's more. Eric also intently watching them from a window. It could literally be anyone at this point. They notice the muddy footprints they tracked in, but Velma takes a closer look and realizes it's not mud, but oil. The professor finally catches up, having had a hard time finding his coat, but as Velma tries to fill him in, they hear the growl. There at the window, the Mantis screams, the professor running off and leaving some oily footprints himself despite not having left the building. As Velma watches him go, everything starts to make sense to her, but it's hard to do anything with the Mantis here snarling, backing the trio up while the boys try to go through their plan booklet to follow Fred's orders. Love Shaggy's stance here. Conveniently, they already have a plan for 7-foot insects just like this, so they cut down the chandelier, which falls on and traps the Mantis. They tie him up proper and sit him in a comfortable chair, very nice of them, for the big reveal. Fred predicts it to be Keeble, but he absurdly pops out of the grandfather clock for some reason. Daphne guesses it's Dickerman then, but he pops out of a hidden door to reveal it's also not him. Shaggy guesses Eric, though I don't know how he knows his name. They only met for a moment without introduction before Eric ran off. Eric walks in the door, at least a normal reveal, to say it's not him either, so who could it possibly be? Velma of course already figured this out, unmasking the Mantis to reveal her friend Professor Greer. The diary in the lab had only one entry. A real scientist would have had better records and their name on their work, not to mention the equipment not even being hooked up. More importantly, the professor left those oily footprints despite staying inside, meaning he secretly went out as the Mantis. Shaggy points out they saw it outside the window with him here though, but Fred explains it to be a cardboard cutout on a pulley with pre-recorded sounds. How does he know that though? Seconds ago he didn't even think the professor did it. As for why, Dickerman was aware of the oil on the property, hence why he was so desperate to buy the land, which the professor found when he took over. That same oil that the boys accidentally found when they met the crocodile. Professor Greer created the Mantis to scare everyone off until he could finalize the deal for himself. And we kind of just leave it unresolved there. Cops are not called, we don't even see what happens to the professor. We don't know if he even goes to prison for this or they just let him go, or why these other three were creeping around the way they were. This has to be one of the most unresolved episodes, really.
I knew there was something fishy going on.
You mean something buggy, don't you, Mr. Keeble? Huh?
Buggy? Buggy? Oh, I get it. Buggy!
And that's the creepy creature of the Vulture's Claw. This is easily one of the most fascinatingly weird episodes of this Scooby iteration. There's usually a lot of emphasis on the villains in Scooby mysteries, and obviously for good reason. That's a lot of the attraction. But this is one of those situations where the episode itself is really needed to express whatever is going on in this one. The Mantis honestly isn't one of the most interesting designs for a villain. It looks really weird, and it's not even as terrifying or off-putting as a Mantis or bug kind of design could be. It's not one of the worst designs, but I think we can all understand why it's not necessarily one of the all-time greats that we bring up as scariest villains alongside the major icons of this iteration. But while a less interesting villain could hinder some episodes, this one is still weird enough to be worth keeping in your regular rotation. We of course have so many different potential suspects that it could end up being, instead of just maybe one or two characters. Keeble seems pretty obvious. He continuously warns them to leave, along with the professor, and when they find Daphne, they are in his cabin, which seems like the most obvious evidence of guilt you can get. Dickerman also has obvious motive. He wants the land and he's not afraid of the creature. We also don't find out why he's not afraid of the creature. Maybe greed just motivates him that much. And Eric isn't all that better, because we only meet him halfway through the episode, and he immediately runs away again, never being seen the same time as the creature. So it could really be any of these three, especially with how they are just creeping around and stalking them. And like I said, we never find out why they are being so weird and suspicious about it. Why does Dickerman know his way into the house and how to find his way through all these secret passages from the moment we meet him? Why was Keeble in the grandfather clock at the end? I have a lot of questions for them, even if they didn't do it. Who it turns out to be is just as interesting for the episode, because it's not every day that a friend of the gang turns out to be the villain. It's not unheard of, obviously, but it's usually not somebody that they are already familiar with, especially unexpected of a friend of Velma. And I take it that he was doing this because he wanted the oil himself, so it especially is unusual that a friend of the gang turns out to be not only guilty, but actually up to no good. It would be one thing if he was just trying to scare Dickerman off to protect the gardens, but that does not seem to be the case. Of course, maybe there's more to it that we don't know. The episode just kind of ends feeling unresolved. You normally end things most of the time with the cops showing up to arrest the bad guy, but not only do we not get that, we don't even get a meddling kids remark or anything here. This one really just kind of ends in the middle of things, which is really weird as well. And why is Fred suddenly so aware of the professor's motives and how he did things without the professor even explaining it? Not to mention that it was literally seconds before that he was totally wrong about who was even under the mask to begin with. This whole episode is sort of just leaving the audience in a frenzy. It's this person, actually it's this person, no, it's this person, now this is happening. It's so all over the place and never even gives an entirely fulfilling conclusion to everything like most episodes would. If you give the episode a chance, it's definitely not going to leave you bored the longer you watch. Things only getting more complicated the longer it goes on. It's almost absurd that we introduce yet another suspect over halfway into the episode as things keep piling up. So even if not for the villain, I would still say this is one of those bizarre, memorable episodes from this era that is definitely worth the watch. What it lacks in potential fear factor, it gains in absurdity. I think that's all we have for today, so I won't hold you any longer. I recently put out a video on the 10,000 volt ghost though, if you want something else and haven't seen that yet. If you want to support the channel, the Patreon is now live, and there's even a 39-minute bonus video covering Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, completely exclusive to that platform as thanks to supporters. Patreon is mainly for supporting the channel, but that's at least a nice extra bonus if you choose to do so. We are in holiday season finally, so hopefully you'll be in the mood to celebrate a little here. Maybe I'll see you around. Bye!